Waystation Herv 3 is not the kind of place people talk about. It sits at the outer edge of the Vaethari Transit Corridor, a pressurized box of filing stations, customs terminals, and a small canteen that runs out of everything by Tuesday. The corridor wall on the east side hums when freighters pass, which they do every 4 hours roughly. I took the posting 2 years ago because the hours were predictable and the quiet suited me, and because my previous work in signals had burned me down to something that wanted predictable and quiet above most things. I maintain the processing terminals, log the transit manifests, and on days when a formal contact team comes through, I stand behind the reception counter and look useful. Wren lies under the counter. She has lain under the counter every working day for 2 years. She is an English Mastiff, brindle, 7 years old, approximately 180 pounds. She smells of the blanket I keep behind the console and of whatever she found to roll in during our walk at 6 that morning. She has never bitten anyone. She has never had occasion to. The Vaethari Cultural Assessment Team arrived at 9:10. 6 of them specialists, not soldiers. Their lead was a Vaethari academic named Sorvath Anil, tall and gray-plated, with the careful posture of someone who has spent 11 years being right about something and is very much looking forward to explaining it. His colleagues carried data cases and recording equipment. One of them had a portable holographic projector already powered on, cycling through thumbnail-sized images of old Earth broadcasts. I had processed their transit authorization the previous evening. The file noted that the team was operating under a cultural first contact assessment protocol, the Vaethari's formal mechanism for evaluating a species before committing to diplomatic engagement. They had spent 11 years doing this. 11 years of Earth's early radio and television signals, analyzed, cross-referenced, behaviorally modeled, indexed. Sorvath Anil shook my hand at the counter, with the measured confidence of a man who had already categorized me. "We are here to complete Stage 4, he said. "Direct observational confirmation. We have prepared a summary of findings, if you would be willing to review it before we proceed." I said I would. He set the projector on the counter and began. The summary was thorough. I will give him that. 11 years is a long time, and his team had been meticulous. They had cataloged human social hierarchies from archived program recordings, mapped aggression indices from news broadcasts, extrapolated dietary data from what appeared to be something called a cooking competition, and derived a preliminary threat classification. The classification was listed as moderate cautionary, a species of moderate social complexity, limited spatial range, likely manageable. He was 17 minutes into the presentation when Wren stood up. She had been asleep since 8:40. She woke the way she always wakes, slowly, with a long exhale through the nose, a rotation of the head, and then a full body shift that takes rather more floor space than one expects. She stood, turned around once, and walked out from behind the counter to have a look at the new people. Sorvath Anil's data tablet hit the floor. He did not drop it intentionally. His hands simply stopped performing their function. The tablet made a sharp sound on the composite decking, and his colleagues, all 5 of them, moved backward as a single unit until they reached the far wall. Wren stopped approximately 2 meters from Sorvath Anil. She looked at him with the mild, unhurried attention she gives to most things, the same expression she uses to monitor a dropped piece of toast. Her tail moved once, slowly, to the left. I said, "Easy." Wren sat. The room was quiet for a while. Sorvath Anil did not retrieve his tablet from the floor. One of his colleagues, the one with the portable projector, was no longer operating the projector. The thumbnail images of Earth broadcasts cycled silently on the counter beside me. "That," I said, "is Wren." Nobody said anything. "English Mastiff," I said. "She's 7. She's been coming to work with me since I started this posting." Sorvath Anil's gray plates had shifted. I had not seen Vaethari plates shift before, but I have seen enough beings cycle through the recognition that they have miscalculated something to know the look of it. It is a very specific stillness. "You brought," he started. "She's a working dog," I said. "Well, companion animal. She keeps me company on the overnight shifts, likes to be where I am." He looked at Wren. Wren looked at him with the same mild attention. "It's a domesticated predator," said one of the colleagues from the far wall. His voice was steady, which I respected. The broadcasts, there were no domesticated predators of this classification in the source material. "There were," I said. "Several broadcasts featured them directly. There was approximately 40 years of programming dedicated almost exclusively to dogs." A pause. "We classified those as low-threat fauna," Sorvath Anil said carefully. "Behavioral indicators suggested dependency, conditioned response, social attachment." "Yes," I said, "all of that." Wren yawned. "She has a large mouth." She closed it, licked her nose once and looked at the ceiling. I waited. Sorvath Anil picked up his tablet. He did it slowly and without looking away from Wren, the way you move around something when you understand, on a level below thought, that you are the smaller animal in the room, and the larger one has simply decided not to do anything about it. "The domestication period," he said. "How long?" "Depends on the line," I said. 15,000 years, some estimates go to 40. He processed that. I could see him processing it, the recalibration happening somewhere behind the gray plates, 11 years of carefully indexed material being held up against the animal sitting calmly on my decking, and not quite matching. "And the species that accomplished this," he said, "the same species in the broadcasts." "That's us," I said. Another pause, longer this time. One of the colleagues at the back wall made a quiet sound. I chose not to identify what kind of sound it was. Sorvath Anil turned back to his projector. He looked at the thumbnail cycling on the counter, a fragment of an old nature documentary, black and white, a man in a hat walking a dog on a city street, and he looked at Wren, and he looked at the thumbnail again. "Stage 4, he said, "may require revision." "Probably," I said. I reached under the counter and got a biscuit from the tin I keep on the lower shelf. I held it out. Wren came forward, took it gently, and went back behind the counter. I heard her settle on her blanket. After a moment, I heard the long exhale of a dog going back to sleep. I found the correct transit contact form in the system, Form 7C, First Contact Observational Supplement, and began filling it in. The fields were standard: time of contact, number of personnel, species of observer, incident summary. For incident summary I wrote, Cultural Assessment Team, 6 personnel, completed Stage 4 direct observation. Observational data to be reconciled with prior broadcast analysis. No incident. Standard transit contact rules applied. Working dog present throughout, in downstay at time of departure. Sorvath Anil's team did not leave immediately. They stood at the counter for another 40 minutes, speaking quietly among themselves in Vaethari dialect. I did not speak it well enough to follow the precise content, but I understood the shape of it. The shape of a model being taken apart and reassembled with a component that had not been in the original kit. At some point, one of the junior colleagues crouched down and looked under the counter at Wren. He watched her sleep for a while. Then he straightened, wrote something in his notes and went back to the group. At 10:38, Sorvath Anil stamped the transit authorization and thanked me for my time. He said it with the courtesy of someone who has learned something they would rather have known earlier. I told him the canteen was to the left if his team needed to regroup before their connecting transit. He said they might. I filed the 7C form at 10:41. I updated the transit manifest. I made a note in the running log: Vaethari Contact Team, Stage 4, no incident, team departed on schedule, and I closed the file. At 10:53, I had a cup of coffee. Wren slept through all of it, as she generally does, on the blanket behind the counter, with the particular depth of sleep that belongs to an animal that has never in its life needed to worry about what was on the other side of the door. She had assessed the situation in the first 3 seconds and found nothing in it that required her attention. She was probably right. There is something to be said for that. I have never worked out exactly what, but Wren has always seemed to know.